Hello, everybody. This is Pete from Pod Labs, and continuing my uh, control replacement data grid series here. The next step in this process and is uh, to clean up the grid and make it pretty. To be honest with you, to make it short and sweet. And I kind of run into the same problem here that I ran into in dealing with the um, combo box, in that we built this little function over here, as you'll recall, for the combo box to load data in the combo box. So what I've done is repeat the same data, and what I'm doing is loading it into a list. Okay, so I have a typed list that I have created. And if we come over here, let's see. What I did was define a structure, Atmos, and Atmos has an ID and an atmosphere. ID being an integer. The thought is that this is kind of a faux table and database table. And the list, this atmosphere list, is typed to Atmos. So every record in this typed list is of this type. Okay. So how I've done this is, this is pretty much a pretend building a table real quick, down and dirty. And let's see, did I even call it? No, I didn't. Okay, so once we define our structure and define our table, then let's come on down here to, here's the open window. We're gonna, let's see, we've created our data grid, so we've replaced our data grid. So at this point, what we want to do is call load list and pass him our table. So I'm going to copy this back over here, and let's see. I kept all the names the same to make it nice and easy. So now we've created our data list. So we have I think it's 4 records with IDs. So now what we're going to do is, we have our list. We are going to call the atmosphere grid procedure. And I have two procedures up here, and we're going to walk through them line by line, because it's important for you to understand this. Whoops, wrong key. And get a grasp of what's going on. It's not complicated by any means. It's actually quite simple. So we're going to call atmosphere grid. All right. Now I have two procedures, I said. So atmosphere grid is a load of the grid. He makes it all pretty. He does all the stuff for the grid itself and loads the data into it. And then what we've done is build a separate procedure to add a record to it. So that's add atmosphere. And it doesn't look like it's spelled right, but I guess it is. Okay. So it's add atmosphere. And both of them require a data grid. So you're probably saying, what on earth is a data grid? Oh my God. Well, no, it's asking for, what is our data grid? So our data grid, if you'll recall, is the list icon that we have replaced with a data grid. So all I got to do is pass him the enumerated value for our list icon grid. That is going to be our data grid. Okay. So let's come up here, follow this thread through. He's going to come in, and we build some variables we may or may not use. I think I use a couple of those maybe. First thing I want to do, and we're calling actually the MyGrid module, which is in our includes MyGrid, okay? And what we're doing is we're telling it first to reset itself, and that requires what's the grid. He wants a handle to the grid, and then he wants how many rows and how many columns. So I decided to do this as 3. So we're going to create 0 rows, 3 columns, and we're going to clear the entire grid out. So it's completely empty. And then I'm going to reset it again, this time using the list size of our list. So if we have a list, and notice this is not getting the index, I'm not doing a -1. We're not playing indexes here. So if we have 1,000 records in that list, then we just built a data grid that's got 1,000 records in 3 columns, okay? So that's what that is doing. I guess that's a bit redundant, but okay. Then we're going to come down here and call create columns. And you're probably wondering what on earth is create columns. Well, that's where DataGrid helper comes in. So if we jump over here to DataGrid helper, we have the function create columns. So this is going to create all of these columns for us to be able to use, okay? From this point forward on these guys, all we have to use is their style name, which is pretty cool. So, all right, let's come back over here. So we're working our way through. So this is a call to DataGrid helper. And now we're going to tweak some themes. We're setting the DataGrid font, and we're using that same font variable we set up way back. We're setting the row height. This is how vertically, how high is a row? And this is messing with our data grid, and he's messing with row 0. So this is setting the row height for our headers. Remember, row 0, column 0 are headers, and then row numbers, okay? Now we're going to come in and say, we're going to set the font, the style font, for the header column, and we're setting it to the standard font we're setting the whole grid to. Again, not terribly difficult. Now what we want to do is load our grid with data. And what we've done is we are iterating the grid row count, and you might be scratching your head and kind of wondering on that. But remember, we just set our data grid row count to the number of records that are in our atmosphere. So remember, row counts start with 1, indexes and lists start at 0. So we're going to go for I equal 1 to get the row count of the data grid. Now we're going to select the list. You're going to keep these two in sync. We're going to select the list I minus 1. So this will be row 1. This is going to be index 0. Okay. Now, first thing we're going to do, we have a block of 3 things that we're going to do here. And this is setting the text on the rows. Okay, all 3 of these are doing the same thing to the same grid at the same row, but in different columns. Okay, so remember we wanted to put in here the atmosphere. We're going to have the name of the atmosphere, and then we're going to have a modify and a delete button. This is physically putting the text, word, modify, and delete, which will get picked up and used by the button, and everybody's happy. So I need to also point out, and it's not being done in this grid, but if you had an image on here, you would actually have this exact same. Let's take this off for a minute and pretend there's an image there. What we would say would be string of atmosphere, ATMOSPH, atmosphere or list, and then whatever the image is, right? All right, so what we do is we convert that number to a string. And at the moment, when we're right there on that record, we are playing solely with a string of a number. Down here, the next block is we're assigning styles. Okay, now's when it gets kind of fun. So instead of M button, remember M button comes from the DataGrid helper, and we scroll down here, and here's the definition of M button. Okay, what we would actually do is use the built-in, if that was an image like we have set up, and say image. But we're going to go ahead and put this back because I want to do what we're doing here. I just wanted to give you a for instance. All of the column data that you present to users here is strings. So if you have integers or floats or anything, you're going to convert it to a string and put it in the table as a string. Now, what you want to do is assign styles next. So what we're doing is when the grid is presented, it's going to be locked down. We want it to be left justified. Atmosphere will be left justified. We could make it centered if you wanted. Remember, I have locked center, left, center, and right. And then we're going to have the two buttons, delete and modify. And then what we're going to do is we set the row height of that row. We are still playing with row I. We're going to walk through every single one of the records of atmosphere and set each individual cell to be of this type. We're going to put these values in the cells, okay? And then we're going to set the row heights to be 36. Now, these two sentences down here of assigning the styles to the grid header, I have never modified those. I pulled those out of the example, and I've never seen the need to modify them. He just says, hey, dude, this is just a header record. He's assigning the style of header to the header row. Remember, we referenced header up here. So we've attached the font to the header. All right, now we're done with all the row records.